Hidden inside a public library book was a letter no librarian ever thought to check. A killer's own confession, complete with a code name he had just invented for himself. "Bind them, torture them, kill them," he wrote. BTK. He would spend the next 3 decades daring Wichita to catch him. This is the Reckoning Files. Wichita, Kansas, in the early 1970s, was an aviation town. Boeing and Cessna plants anchoring the local economy. Church bulletins in every mailbox. The kind of place where neighbors still left their doors unlocked. It was not a city that thought of itself as dangerous. On January 15th, 1974, that changed. A family of 4, Joseph and Julie Otero, and 2 of their children, was found murdered inside their home on Edgemore Street. They had been restrained and they had been strangled. There was no forced entry, no obvious motive, and almost nothing for detectives to work with beyond the scene itself. What investigators did not know yet was that the man responsible was still in Wichita, and that he had already given himself a name, one he'd soon put into writing and mailed directly to the local newspaper. Word of the murders spread fast. Wichita residents who had never bothered locking a door started installing deadbolts by the end of that week. But without a name, a motive, or a clear connection between the victims, there was little for police to tell, a frightened city beyond. Stay alert. That October, a letter arrived at the Wichita Eagle with instructions pointing to a second letter, hidden inside a textbook at the public library, describing the Otero murders in detail that had never been made public. Over the next several years, the killings continued without any fixed schedule, but always with the same signature. Victims bound inside their own homes, then strangled. Later in 1974, he attacked a young woman who worked at the same company as an earlier victim. Her brother survived the encounter and helped police build an early description of the attacker. In March 1977, he broke into a home in daylight, locked 3 young children in a bathroom, and killed their mother before anyone found her. Weeks later, in December, 25-year-old Nancy Fox was strangled inside her own house. The next morning, in one of the case's stranger turns, the killer called police himself from a downtown payphone, a handkerchief held over the receiver, and calmly told the dispatcher where to find her, reporting his own crime as if he were an anonymous passerby. By then, the killer had already told the public what to call him. In a 1978 letter mailed to a local television station, frustrated that his crimes weren't getting enough coverage, he asked outright to get my name in the paper and offered up a list of possible nicknames. One stuck: the BTK Strangler, bind, torture, kill, a phrase he had coined to describe his own method, in his own words. Then, almost as suddenly as it started, the killing seemed to stop. There was no confirmed BTK murder for years afterward, a gap long enough that some in Wichita wondered if he had died or moved away. He hadn't. In 1985, a Wichita woman was murdered in her home. The following year, under a plan he privately called Project Piano, he stalked and killed a local piano teacher, gaining entry to her house by posing as a telephone repairman while her toddler was home. In January 1991, he strangled a 62-year-old woman and left her body near a rural bridge outside the city. She would be his 10th and final confirmed victim, though no one in Wichita yet knew the killing had ended for good. Through the worst of these years, Wichita Police Chief Richard Lemunion had assembled a dedicated task force. One investigator's nicknamed Ghostbusters, equal parts gallows humor and genuine desperation. It included a young detective named Ken Landwehr, who would spend the better part of his career chasing the same unsolved case. For more than a decade, BTK said nothing at all. Then, in January 2004, as Wichita marked the 30th anniversary of the Otero murders with a newspaper retrospective, letters from him started arriving again. In March 2004, the Wichita Eagle received a package from someone signing as Bill Thomas Kilman, the initials spelled out BTK. Inside was a photocopied driver's license and photographs connected to the unsolved 1986 murder of Vicky Wegeler, details investigators had never released publicly. It was, unmistakably, BTK announcing he was back. Over the months that followed, more packages and letters reached police and local media, sometimes close to once a month. Among them, a cereal box left in a pickup truck bed and a manila envelope dropped at a local news station. A reactivated task force, now led by Ken Landwehr, the same detective who had cut his teeth on the case decades earlier, ran down every new communication, searching for any thread that could lead back to a real identity. The break came from an unlikely direction. In one letter, the killer asked police directly whether it would be safe to send information on a floppy disk, whether it could be traced. Investigators arranged for local media to publicly and falsely assure him that it could not. He believed them. In February 2005, a floppy disk arrived at a Wichita television station. Forensic examiners recovered deleted file data, pointing to a computer at Christ Lutheran Church, last saved under the name Dennis. A quick check of the church's own website turned up the name of its congregation president, Dennis Rader. Investigators moved carefully rather than quickly. They obtained a warrant for a medical tissue sample already on file for Rader's adult daughter, a college student at the time, with no idea she was part of the investigation, and compared its DNA profile to genetic material recovered years earlier from a victim. The familial match was close enough to confirm they had their man. On February 25th, 2005, police arrested Dennis Rader without incident. The man behind BTK was, on paper, one of the most unremarkable people in Park City, Kansas. Dennis Rader was married with 2 grown children. He served as president of his church congregation, had led a local Boy Scout troop for years, and worked as a compliance officer for the city, going door to door, citing neighbors for unmowed lawns and code violations. Almost no one who knew him suspected a thing. On June 27th, 2005, Rader pleaded guilty to 10 counts of first-degree murder. There was no trial. In a flat, methodical recitation that unsettled the courtroom, he walked through each killing himself and confirmed his responsibility for all 10 deaths on the record. Reporters in the room described his tone as businesslike, almost detached, a striking contrast to the letters he'd once written, boasting about the same crimes. At his sentencing on August 18th, 2005, the court heard directly from the families of his victims before Judge Gregory Waller imposed the sentence. 10 consecutive life terms, a minimum of 175 years without the possibility of parole, the maximum the law allowed. Kansas had no death penalty in effect covering the years when most of the murders occurred. So consecutive life sentences were the harshest outcome available to the court. family members addressed Rader directly in the courtroom, describing what his decades of silence and secrecy had cost them. Rader offered a lengthy statement of his own, which several relatives publicly rejected as self-serving. The judge's sentence stood regardless: 10 lives, 10 consecutive terms, with no possibility that Rader would ever be released. 2 decades later, the BTK case is still referenced in law enforcement and digital forensics training, not for the killings themselves, but for how the case finally ended. Rader evaded identification for more than 30 years through careful discipline, only to be undone by a single piece of removable media he was wrongly told could never be traced. It became one of the earliest widely cited lessons in digital evidence, that metadata left behind in an ordinary file can outlast even the most careful physical precautions. For the families of his 10 victims, the case closed with a guilty plea and the maximum sentence available under Kansas law. Dennis Rader remains incarcerated, where he has occasionally resurfaced in connection with other unsolved cases investigators have looked at since. His daughter, Kerry Rawson, who was an adult with no knowledge of his crimes at the time of his arrest, has since become a public author and advocate for victims of violent crime, writing openly about learning who her father really was. Nearly 2 decades on, the case is still a fixture of true crime documentaries and podcasts, revisited again and again, not because the outcome is in question, but because so much of it turned on a killer who wanted more than anything to be known. If you want the next case file, subscribe. New files drop Monday and Thursday.